Every high and crushing low taught me something invaluable: resilience. I began documenting my journey, recording every lesson and every step towards rebuilding my success and my mental, even if no one else was watching. I didn't know where this path would lead, but I had Frank, Rosario, and the memories of everything I built and lost, fueling my determination. What you're about to see is my journey, the highs, the lows, and every moment in between, captured during a time when I was all alone, but never defeated. I'm going to get back to being a millionaire. No matter what, I will make it.
Hey guys, so I wanted to make a recap video. This is going to be a halfway point, right? And I want to make this because I think it's going to be interesting to see if I get this correct. Now, when I say halfway, I mean, if you're watching this, this is going to be the halfway point between me getting everything that I've been talking about. So, excuse the noise. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Today, by the way, is March 3rd. It is the day after, or 2 days after I made the first video. I think I made the other video on March 1st or something like that. Just to kind of clarify where everything's at right now. Bitcoin is currently at... do this really quick. Bitcoin is currently at $63,253, and Ethereum is at $3,471. And again, today is Sunday, March 3rd. So the reason I'm making this video is, again, I want to recap everything that kind of happened to me in the last couple of years, starting with the first thing. First thing that happened was back in April or March of 2021. I put $2,000 into Shiba, and Shiba didn't do anything for a couple of months. Everyone was hating on it as not being a reliable stock or a reliable investment. And out of nowhere, Shiba Swap came out. Everyone went crazy. It ran through. There were articles about it. Everyone was hating. Everyone was trying to push it down. And over the next 4 to 5 months, however, Shiba rose to incredible prices, and my $2,000 became $1.5 million. I'll never forget that. I was over here at this Cisconos with my boy Mike and with my friend Rowena, and we celebrated. They were like, okay, and this is before I made 1.5, how much should I put in? And I said, you guys should probably put in this amount. And their portfolios skyrocketed. Rowena, she made almost about $10,000 to $20,000 from a 5K purchase. And my boy Mike, he was in early with me, and he went from, I think, around 2,000 to 3,000 or something like that to 100K. And that was the craziest moment of my life. And it was also the downfall. As a guy who has never experienced that amount of wealth, let me tell you, it's a different feeling, and it can go really fast without you knowing how to handle it. A lot of people, when they handle that money, or they say, when I get this, you can cash out. No, that's not how it works. Maybe you've had education in this early on, yeah, and then maybe you have the skill to do it. But I'm talking about a person who has never experienced that, who's never ascended to that level. But going from a couple $1,000s to 1.5 million, that's not a normal thing. And you could be the most humble person ever and still lose it all. And I feel like I'm very mid-row. Like, I don't care about aesthetics. I don't care about luxury brands or any of that shit. Like, I don't care about the materialistic stuff, and I still lost it all. And this is how. So, and it's really just because of greed and really not knowing better. And I wasn't even thinking greed. Like, I wasn't really even thinking greedy. It happened to be that way. When you look back at it. So this is what happened. So during the whole chaos, I was able to take some money out because for a couple months I was basically farming. What farming is you basically put your money and lock it up essentially, and by doing that you can basically make passive income. And so I was locking up my amount. The problem is, during that hype run, I never took any of my Shiba out. I just let it, do its thing. So that 1.5 mil or whatever went down to about 600 to 700,000. Now the biggest issue there was I wasn't smart enough to know about the fees. I wasn't smart enough to know about when you transfer money back and forth and you're trying to trade it and stuff, because I got scared. When it went from 1.5 to 600,000 more or less, I did get scared. I said, okay, it's probably time to cash it out. I think during this time I was farming a little bit. I took it out. I should have kept it farming, but it is what it is. At some point, I became greedy, right? What if this happened? What if that? That's what happens when you get to those levels. You say, what if? And that is the first mistake. And so I did. I said, what if? I took it out around 500, 600,000. And when I did that, when I took it out at 500 or 600,000, I traded it back and forth on the DEXs, which is the exchange, or on the like Uniswap and stuff. But I didn't realize that I was sacrificing almost $50,000 or less per trade. And because of that, my 500 to or so thousand went even lower. It went even lower. And I, it's one of those things where it's like, fuck, man. And so it went even lower to about, I think I had about 350,000 at the peak of everything. Once I started like actually being like, okay, this is how much money I had about 350 to 400,000. Then the problem started arising of, do I take it out or do I start spending on stuff? So I thought it would be a great idea to go ahead and spend the money on projects that I thought were good for me, but it wasn't good on making money. I didn't make money from any of the projects that I was investing on, like making models and stuff like that. I have tons of models and assets, but I should have used it to make money, because at that point I was already down, And so by going ahead and paying people and paying for things that weren't making me money, and I believe I spent about 70 to 80K on things that weren't making me money. I didn't realize it at the time, but eventually I'm like, oh shit, I'm spending all this money, but I'm not getting anything back. And the problem was, I didn't have an animator that I really could rely on to go ahead and actually make these actually hype up these projects. I just basically had models and everything like that with nothing to expand on, which really sucked. So I'm out 80K. So now I'm around 250 to 300,000 left, not making any money off of everything. And then I'm like, okay, I'm losing money fast. And again, all while this is happening, I'm not thinking about myself like, oh shit, I should have probably paid off my debts. I should have gone ahead and paid off my car. I should have done this, that, and that. I didn't do any of it. Actually, I did pay off my car, but I ended up refinancing it, which I didn't know was refinancing until it was too late. So I'm still paying for my car. So I didn't do any of this. And it's one of those things where, I really should have been more educated, but I feel like most people don't realize what they have until they lose it all. And so that was literally my biggest thing, was I had no clue until I lost everything, right? And so, guys, I just want to let you know that now I'm at, 200 and let's just say 50,000, and I'm worried at this point, because now I start to realize this is maybe about 6 months after the fact. I start to realize, hey, I'm not making anything and I'm losing almost everything, you know? What do I do? And again, I don't use it for myself. I don't. Which was like one of my biggest mistakes. And, you know, if I had to do it all over again, you know, I would say, I would, even if I couldn't save it at the top, I would have basically paid everything down. Student debts, loans, all that bullshit. But I didn't. And so being at 250,000, what else could I do? I go ahead and try to make my money back, as any smart, you know, person would do. And I try to make it back by throwing it into a couple of projects. One project I thought was good was a project called Gourmet Galaxy. That was a big mistake because I ended up getting soft rug pulled. Never knew what that meant. I knew people got hacked. I knew people could get rug pulled. I never knew what a soft rug pull was until it happened. And I dumped about I dumped roughly around $300,000 into this project, thinking, okay, it's a really low cap project. I'll get my money back because they're working on stuff. I tried to do the best research I could. I said, okay, they have a good team. I'm farming, which is basically the same thing before. I was like, okay, I'm making good APY on my investment. Like I was getting some of that money back. And then all of a sudden, things weird started happening. You know, the farm wasn't working, so I wasn't getting any money and I couldn't pull anything out. You know, weird shit started happening. The price started to dip dramatically after I put money in. And, you know, so everyone was pretty selling out, and and everyone was like, don't worry, we're still doing things. Here's an update. And things started to get slower and slower until the team just stopped. They mysteriously disappeared because they made the money off me and I didn't even realize it. And so me trying to get my money back, what I do then is I go ahead and, you know, I pretty much lose the rest of my money. I basically lose that portion of my money in that project, unfortunately. And it was a shame, you know, losing all my money in that project. You know, I really thought I had something there, and I you know, I lost it. So after that, I go ahead and I have an art friend named Yomanova, or Christian. I've known him for almost 6 to 7 years. And, you know, I swore, you know, he was my friend. He was cool. He loved art. He loved 3D, everything that I did. You know, he was from Norway. We shared, you know, DMs and everything for the past, you know, 5, 6, 7 years. And I don't know how somebody could do this, but, you know, I go ahead and I put $100K into the project. He and another person are making a NFT project. And I say, you know what? The art looks amazing. I'm going to support this creator, my friend, you know, a pal who's cool in the 3D space, just like me, relates on every level, just like me. There's no way he would fuck me over, right? And you know, a year goes in and there's a lot of issues with the project. I mean, at first it looked good, and then issues started to rise. No communication, you know, sporadic like decisions are being made. And I'm out here wondering, I'm like, dude, do you need me to help you? I can help in certain, you know, aspects, you know. And I try to help. I try to get the community going. I'm like, you know, don't give up hope. And at the very end, you know, it didn't go. It went south, and they basically ran off with all, you know, everyone's money, and it was like the worst case scenario to the whole like saga, because, you know, I trusted somebody that had an idea like myself, and I saw that in them. I saw that same idea that I usually have about things. I'm like, wow, they're trying to create something just like if I were trying to do it. However, maybe this is something big. Let me go all in. And it didn't work out. And so those two cases just wiped me completely. And, you know, I had the best intentions, but honestly, again, I wasn't thinking logically. And again, when you have that much money, and if you've never experienced a situation of extreme loss like that, or extreme high, I would say, is as a lot of people are saying it is. It's like when you get to that level, you kind of get high on yourself. It's not a high of like ego, right? But it's a high of, you know, wanting more in a sense, and not really, and being blindsided, being narrow. Like your vision is so narrow at that point that you forget everything else exists. Money becomes numb to you. I remember that was a big thing. Like money, $20 here, $5,000 here. All that stuff felt numb because I felt like I was on top of the world. And that's a feeling I want to get back to, but obviously with a better state of mind now that I've focused on loss, right? Okay, bear with me. I'm going to be in the dark here, but it's because I'm doing DoorDash and all this other bullshit. So then, you know, I got nothing. And remember, I pretty much quit my job at this point too, because I thought I had it all. Again, I wasn't working for almost a year either. So part of my income was actually being taken from my profits. I think at this point I had like maybe 50K left. At the bare minimum, I had like 50K. So I was good to last for about a year or so after my stuff. So I was basically paying myself, you know, the last remaining scraps that I had from my winnings. But overall, it just really sucked because I basically lost everything else, you know. So it really didn't mean much at the end. So after I went through everything, that's when I start making this series, right? When I've lost everything, I have no more money at the very end, that's when I started this series. And so, like I said, this is going to be the halfway point, because what I predict, right? I'm predicting that this halfway, or by the end of my series, right? By the end of my series, it's going to be about, no, when you see this, it's going to be 2025 or 2026, and I would have already made it. By watching this video, it means that I've made it, because I do not seriously want to post everything that I have right now, and I haven't made it yet. It feels anticlimactic. It feels like you're watching the journey of somebody who is just saying, you know, shit. No, I want there to be motivation. I want there to be a goal at the end of the tunnel. And even if it means I can't post this, you know, mentally, I can't post these until I make it. I want that feeling of not of being gratified that I achieved what I wanted to achieve, right? And so that's the end goal of this entire series. By the end of the series, you're gonna see how I go from a guy who's basically on top of the world to a guy who's lost it all to a guy who's back on top of the world. And if that isn't motivation to show people, hey, you could still make it, you need the motivation, you have to just keep fighting through, and you have to have goals, that is going to be my mission. That's my ultimate mission, right? To show people that if you truly believe in yourself, you can get back, right? And so when I lost it all, and when I started this series, as you've come to see, I started working with Frank, who was really, you know, at the time, he wasn't really struggling with the business. You know, we just got through with some court stuff and some legal stuff from the old house that we used to be in. And I was basically managing the horses that we had in the barn. And life was decently good. And this was the era where I had a little bit of cash still left. I was, you know, hustling where I could. I was still at Verizon for a little bit, you know, before I quit, because I thought I was on top of the world. And when we moved to this new place, and when jobs started getting low, as you've seen over the past year, they've just, you know, things have slowly gone awry. And when the legal case fell through, And due to, you know, not having the right lawyers, not having the proper preparations, you know, all of this matters. But at the end of the day, and me doing Amazon Flex and Fiverr and all this other stuff, you know, all of this shows the grind that you have to really get back, okay? And it shows you need to have self-control and understand that no matter what, you need to just keep going, keep fighting, because any other person would have just committed. I don't care what anyone says, you know, as a person who's gone through this struggle, I don't think I could do it a second time. Like, if it happened a second time, I don't think I could deal with that, right? So, as I was saying, and I keep on losing my train of thought, sorry. I'm pretty busy. It's going to stay dark for a little bit, sorry. But, essentially, I want to get back to the note of, I believe that when you see this, it's going to be mid-2025 or 2026 that this really culminates, and you're going to see that I've been strategizing to get to where I need to be. What I've been doing in the meantime is working on my manga. This is the strategy that I've been doing. Again, this applies to anything, but you have to have a strategy of what you enjoy, what you like to do, and you have to dabble. You have to not be scared to dabble in everything. I started with advertising, then I went to drop shipping, and then I went down the rabbit hole, and I started doing everything. Advertising, drop shipping, Etsy store, you know, you name it, I was doing it. You just can't be scared. You have to put some money into this or that. I was trying to day trade. I was trying to learn how to code. I never told anyone this, but I got so scared that I even asked my uncle. I remember asking my uncle, I said, hey, can you give me like $10,000 or something like that? I got so scared that I was even asking family for like help, for advice, for money. And it wasn't that he's the only one I did that to, by the way, but it was that like underwhelming, like what am I doing kind of feeling. And so I don't want anyone to ever have to feel like that, ever. And you should never have to go out of your way to ask people for money. I don't think that's the way. And so, you know, by the time you guys see this, you'll see that, you know, I tried everything. I just completed my manga. I want to also start diving into 3D, but now I'm starting to take my time and look over what is working. What is working for me? You know, if something doesn't work, right? And especially if I'm putting my time and effort, usually after like a month or so, I don't really want to continue that because, again, it's taking too much time from other stuff, you know? Working on my manga, I knew if that becomes successful, I knew that it would take some time to make, but I knew that the quality, the output, my storytelling, my artists and their art would prevail and allow me to succeed, because I believed heavily, and I still believe heavily, that we can make something as a team. And it's something that is relatively low cost to produce, and it's way less expensive than 3D animation. And so if I have to put 3D animation on the back burner to get a successful project going that will actually make us just a little bit of money to continue, then I will do that. I would do that gladly, because again, I'm young, but I mean, I could be like 40 years old and be in a midlife crisis, right? A lot of times you just have to put yourself out there. You have to understand a lot of different things. Or if you're talented and you're good at one thing, stick to that one thing, okay? Don't try a whole bunch of other things. The reason why I'm saying try a whole bunch of other things is the people like me who don't have the innate talent, who try to try things and they fail, and you fail and you fail. And you need to understand that failing isn't the end-all be-all. Failing is the path to success. The more times you fail and you learn from your failure, the better you'll be. I have so much more knowledge in the last 2 to 3 years from failing and not achieving what I thought I would achieve than if I were on top of the world again, and I had no experience, no knowledge of any of this. I would be a way different person, I believe. And I feel like I'm way more seasoned now, that if it were to happen again, which it will happen again, that I can control myself and understand what my end goals are going to be, even at that level. Because then I set new goals. I don't set the same goals. And I think the problem was I had goals in my mind. That's not going to change. But the problem was I didn't have the right goals set. I was setting myself up for failure. I was telling myself that I was still broke. I was telling myself that I've made it. Not broke, that I was rich. And I told myself that I made it. And the problem was I wanted more. I wasn't grateful with what I had. Even though I thought I was grateful and I was humble and everything, I really didn't understand what that meant. You don't understand what that means until you have to grovel. And a lot of people are going to say, no, you didn't really grovel. You didn't have to, you weren't homeless. You weren't this. No, I wasn't. But the mental capacity to come back, to not work for a whole year because you want to try something else, to work for a job that wasn't paying me, like it should have, to struggle financially, and to, have the mental fortitude to know that, like, I lost everything. I'm a failure every single day, every year. The only thing keeping me alive and going and stuff is to telling myself the false confidence, maybe hopium. I was huffing that hopium like it was nothing, because I really wanted to believe that I still had enough juice left in the tank to still make something of myself. I'm not a lucky person by any means. Luck does not reside anywhere near me. Luck repels from me, okay? I'm not lucky by any means. Otherwise, I would have been born talented. I would have got a lucky break. Now, a lot of people could say that Shiba was lucky. Yeah, sure. Fine. That makes sense. Maybe it was luck. But it's not luck getting back, It's not lucky to do it twice. It just isn't. Especially when I'm vlogging the entire journey of how I'm doing it, That doesn't take luck. That takes skill and perseverance. And I want people to understand that that's the embodiment that I'm performing, okay? I'm performing, what, people don't I'm manifesting what I believe in. And because I believe in it, I do feel like manifestation's just one of those powerful things, because I don't believe in fate. Fate doesn't touch me. The reason fate doesn't touch me is because I don't want my mind to be limited by, oh shit, things are predetermined. Even if they are, I don't want my mind to be limited by that. I want to give it my best at all times. And so if that means that I want to make myself believe that I am outdoing fate, that I am beyond it, even if I'm not. I like to believe that I can crash through that ceiling at any point. And so that is what keeps me going. So without further ado, guys, I wish you farewell. And this is the midway point. We're only going up from here. And I mean that. We are only going up from here. You're only going to see me getting better and better and better from here on out. Peace.
So if you thought the video was good, please give it a like and share. It really helps. And don't forget to subscribe so you can see the rest of the story unfold. This project is so close to my heart, and your support keeps it going. Thanks so much. With that being said, I'll see you guys next time in the archives of a Shiba Millionaire.